Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Arwin, 10th Man, Neil, father of a stolen child, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Good morning. Good Friday.
Hey, good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning, good afternoon, hello, wherever you may be.
Are you sponsored by Octopus Energy now, Nathan?
Not sponsored by them, I just promote them to get a £50 rebate and offer the audience a £50 bonus for swapping their electricity supplier, as made clear in the intro.
Thank God for that. I thought they'd gone mad.
Why would it be mad to sponsor me?
Well, I don't think many companies want to be associated with this kind
I
of...
couldn't give a shit what you think. You're a clown who doesn't understand arguments you come here to argue about. Have it pointed out how little you know about them, have the rebuttal of your own side pointed out to you, and still think you're in a position to tell us you've got arguments, as we found out in the pre-show. So you're the dumbest person here. Your opinion matters not.
Can we continue on that pre-show for a few minutes?
Oh, we spent the whole day yesterday doing a glossary topic. Like, what does a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of a clock from behind the reified curve that's now debunked by the black swan, what does that mean? We spent the whole show doing that. So I was hoping to do housekeeping, because it's the whole point of housekeeping is to get them quick fire at the beginning of each show so that the main points that debunk heliocentrism are laid out for the audience straight away.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah, but I'm here now. You don't need that.
Sorry,
This dumpster fire. This is a dumpster fire already when I'm here.
Yeah, you're damn right about that.
Yeah. Oh, Vacuum, just stick around afterwards because I have a couple of questions to ask.
Try and involve yourself in the housekeeping. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
No.
It only exists in the math.
That's unfortunate, given that they used to claim it blocked boats and buildings.
They do. They do.
They don't. They don't.
The black swan. They do in the math.
That's it. We can all go home. Earth's not a sphere. We've debunked Earth curve. That's basically the end of the argument, right there. Black swan. That's all you need. Earth's not a sphere. Any comments? Anybody at all? Maybe some big math
I want to
that
see a
this?
3D orthographic view emulator. I want to see that happening.
Oh, we discussed that in the pre-show. The orthographic representation.
All right. Never mind. I'll listen back.
Stress the importance of the black swan argument in this regard. There is no geometric physical sphere-edge horizon. It only exists in the maths. The horizon is not Earth curve. Hey, Brian. Brian.
Hey, Brian. Hey, Brian.
Hey, everyone. How are things?
Very well indeed. Good to have you.
Good to be on. Thank you.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No.
No.
Nonsense.
No, we're not spinning.
No. The sun is moving.
What would be the evidence if we were spinning?
Everything.
No,
Throw a
it would
football.
be
It's
everywhere,
going to
yeah.
deviate.
Go on, Alan, sorry.
It's everything. It would be a very spinny, path-altering world. It would be, the entire world would be like being on a roundabout. Every time you lob something into the air or lift off in the air, there's going to be deviations constantly, all the time.
Well said.
Okay, that's
Fifth
very
one.
interesting because I had a catch with my son yesterday because the weather was nice and the ball kept going straight. He threw it to me, I caught it. I threw it to him, he caught it. So what would be the effect if I was spinning?
It would drift. The ball would drift
1,500 feet per second.
at your
If
location.
you were on-
You'd be in the
if you were
major
on the
leagues.
equator.
You'd be in the major leagues, Neil.
You were on the equator, it'd be 1,500 feet per second deviation. At where I am in California, about 750 feet per second. So if you were a second away from me from the time I let go of the ball, that ball would be 750 feet eastward.
If the air was rotating with a rotating surface, right, as is said to be in the heliocentric model, that the atmosphere rotates with the sphere.
That's not
right?
correct.
Sorry?
That's not correct.
It's not correct. I was sure they said that the atmosphere rotates with the sphere.
No, that's what the trench level fundies who come up against the problem that we don't see 15 degrees an hour drift. So Globe Earth claims we have 15 degrees an hour drift. That's the non-inertial turning reference frame of Earth demonstrating not actual deflection from that vantage point as things in the separate inertial reference frame. Yeah? As you move beneath those things in a separate reference frame, you get 15 degrees an hour drift. If the two move together, as is asserted by Globe trench level fundies, not by the heliocentric rhetoric, then there wouldn't be 15 degrees an hour drift. Now, the Globe claim is Coriolis effect, 15 degrees an hour drift, not a lack thereof because the two move together, Brian. That's Globiolis. You know this better than I, and I'm leading into what you're no doubt going down here anyway, but yeah. You know damn well that they're not moving together in the rhetoric. Coriolis deflection is the rhetoric.
Well, see, I was attacking even that rhetoric with what I was going to say, because if, right, within that rhetoric of the air moving with the surface, within that rhetoric, a plane can still fly from point A to point B. So there is still absolutely no way for it not to be flying over a rotating surface that's moving at 15 degrees an hour. So that rhetoric makes no difference, because the plane is still flying over an Earth that's rotating at 15 degrees an hour, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, but if you're going to compare it to something that from the ground looks like it's drifting because you're turning underneath it at 15 degrees an hour, i.e. in your example, you're looking up at a plane, and it from the ground, the plane from the ground, looks like it's drifting but isn't, and is only doing that because you're turning beneath it. That's the claim Globe Earth makes. Likewise, Neil deGrasse Tyson's football drifts because when it leaves the ground, Earth continued to rotate beneath it. Or their claim with snipers. You know, you've got to track your target because it's claimed Earth's turning underneath the bullet after it leaves the barrel of the gun. Well, all of those effects are Earth turning beneath an inertial reference frame, not Earth turning an inertial reference frame turning with it, because that makes no sense when you come to actually detailing how you get Coriolis effect. And they definitely do claim that we have Coriolis effect at 15 degrees an hour.
Yes, but we should still see the same Coriolis effect, even with the claim of the air moving with a rotating Earth. Because the air is moving, but the plane...
Okay, let me just deal with that. There's different directions of surface winds. So immediately, even if you're saying, well, that is claimed, okay, fine, but you've got multiple directions of surface winds, Brian. That immediately debunks that.
Oh, I'm not saying that. I'm only speaking about the trench level. I'm not saying that that's the I'm only talking about that particular claim. That doesn't change that we should still see we should still see an apparent deviation with planes and helicopters and things in the sky. Because if a plane is flying from A to B through this rotating air, this rotating atmosphere, because it has to be rotating with the surface of the rotating globe. Then if a plane is flying from London to Berlin or whatever, then it still has to fly through this rotating air that's rotating with the surface, that's all moving at 15 degrees an hour. So we would still, even with that rhetoric, we should still see an apparent drift, but we don't. That's the point.
I know what you're saying. You're saying that if you travel north-south or south-north on a presupposed spherical Earth with Coriolis deviation that's actually described with a hijacking of the tidal Coriolis effect, when detailing the conservation of angular momentum, hijacked into the conservation of linear speed changes, then you'll still have the effect, because what that describes, even though it's not the rhetoric and it's definitely not Coriolis effect, it's Globiolus effect. You're saying within the confines of what they describe at trench level as Globiolus effect, you would still see deviation north to south or south to north. Because if the atmosphere is moving along with the Earth moving at 15 degrees an hour, you're going to have to fight against that if you're travelling north.
Well, no, I'm actually not. That's a Globiolus claim.
Yeah.
I'm actually not speaking about that. What I'm saying is, even with the claim of the atmosphere moving with the Earth, an airplane flying from, let's say it goes from the UK to the US, that plane still has to fly through this rotating atmosphere. So it makes no difference if they claim that the atmosphere rotates with the Earth, because the plane still has to fly through this rotating atmosphere. So it makes no difference. We should still see the apparent deviation, also known as the effect of Coriolis. But we don't.
I've got you now. I get what you're saying. If it's attached, it's like the plane has suddenly got wheels on the ground, and it's going to have to compensate for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the air is moving with a rotating surface, if a plane is still flying from point A to point B, from point A to point B, then it's still flying through this rotating air. So we should still see apparent deviation.
Sure. I now understand your point. I'm glad you clarified it, because I cut you off thinking I'd already got it when I hadn't. However, my point still stands. Is it the case that we always see a consistent Earth turn with atmosphere moving at the same rate in the same direction in violation of the first law of thermodynamics as you raise in altitude? Because if you did, I'll agree with you, you would have your effect still manifest. And I see your point. But we've still got multiple directions of surface winds, haven't we?
Oh yeah, there's no way that the air is rotating with a rotating surface. The surface would have to be rotating first. And then you'd have to create magic. Anyway, no, you're 100% right. I'm not going against that, and you're saying.
Yeah, as soon as that claim is made, it's like, well, we've got multiple directions of surface winds. If you're going to assert we've got atmosphere moving with the ground beneath to not give us the effect of Coriolis as is claimed, in other words, they're fighting against their own claim at that stage, then number one, you'd still have the effect because of the reasons you've just detailed, but also, well, it's a first law of thermodynamics violation, because the atmosphere higher up in that circumstance, Brian, has got to increase its velocity as it goes up, right? So because it's got a greater circumference to traverse, it's actually got to go faster than the ground that's travelling beneath it at the same rate. So the higher you go, the greater the circumference, therefore it's got to increase velocity to track at the same rate as the ground below, therefore a first law of thermodynamics violation to even claim it in that manner. But why bother getting to the first law of thermodynamics violation and detailing how the air that you're describing tracking with the ground beneath that's velcroed with it is actually having an increase in velocity, i.e. the first law of thermodynamics? Why bother detailing that? Just say we've got multiple directions of surface winds. Obviously that's not happening.
I want to challenge what Brian just said.
Which bit first? Let's just, before you do, which bit are you specifically challenging, or does that ruin the way you're going to try and weasel this?
No, we'll just have to imagine that a first law of thermodynamics violation is possible. Then you can create a situation of like a closed system. Like if you're on a train traveling, then that's where their analogies start. It's like, oh, if you're traveling on a train and you throw a baseball backwards and forwards, You
No, that's
don't
okay. That's
notice
cool. We'll go with
anything
that.
different.
Well, okay, we'll go with that.
Okay.
Do you want to make the rest of it? Go ahead if you want to make the rest of the argument. So you've got an example where you're saying, no, like if you throw a ball back and forth on a train, you're in a closed system with all the air moving in a capsule, and therefore the air relative to the train is static inside it, while the train cuts through the air on the outside. So is that comparable? Is Earth like an enclosed capsule, like a train?
Well, that's what I was saying. If you'll just let me beg the question of a first law of thermodynamics violation, then maybe.
Maybe Earth's a closed system like a
If I
train. That's a problem. I thought Earth was an open system, so men can't go to the moon then. Because to have this first law of thermodynamics violation, I'm letting you beg the question of, you've got to have Earth like a train, closed system. Men can't get to the moon then.
It's kind of like it's a open close. Oh man, this is bad.
Go on, use that. Go on, use the oxymoron. Say it's an open closed system. Go on.
Let me try to. Yeah, it is a mostly open system.
It's a binary thing. That's an oxymoron. It's either open or it's closed. You can't be a little bit pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. You can't be a little bit married. You can't be a little bit open. You're either open or not.
It's an open container in a closed system.
So closed. So men can't go to the moon then. Closed, contained, sealed, like a train.
For all practical purposes.
Yeah, for all practical purposes, closed, men can't go to the moon. Yeah, this sounds familiar. Let's get to that housekeeping question, although this has turned into a proper discussion on all the different subjects, which is fine. Any evidence you can have gas pressure, the stuff we're all breathing, without a container, as asserted in the heliocentric model?
Well, if you drive your car, there's more air pressure at the front than at the back. I read a Glober say that today.
What did he say?
When you're driving your car, there's more air pressure at the front than at the back because you're driving through air like.
All right. What's the response
Well, that
to that?
makes sense.
What's the response to that, though?
Where'd you get the air in the first place?
Perfect. Shotgun blast.
Yep.
Yeah. Where'd you get the gas pressure from in the first place, then, to create this gas pressure differential in the gas that you're describing? Where did that gas pressure come from, given that your paradigm has the sky as an availability of volume for the gas to fill, and we'd never achieve gas pressure for you to give this example? Where'd you get the gas pressure from in the first place?
Yep, it would have to press back in all directions in order to be able to push against gas locally and then create a differential. Because if it was an open system, it wouldn't be there in the first place. And even if it was, it would simply scatter in all directions until it's all gone.
Perfect. Bringing me nicely back to the housekeeping question. Any evidence that we can have gas pressure without a container? Answered, no. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill the space and we'd all be dead. The sky is not a vacuum. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
You can't see it. If you don't see the sun, is it still there? Huh?
Don't know. It might not be. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it is.
Right.
How can you measure something that's intangible?
Well, there was a gentleman yesterday who said, "Do you know of a light source that's not tangible?"
I'll tell you how. What they'll do. They'll measure its effect and then they'll correlate their just so story. That's what they'll do.
No distance.
Go on, John.
I was going to say what that guy was going to do was use a sort of equivocation and say all light that we can create has a physical source, and then apply it to the sun, which we can't recreate.
Yeah, but can you touch that? You're touching the bulb, but you're not touching the light.
I'd say you couldn't, like, it would burn you. You could touch the plasma and it would burn you.
Sorry, am I missing something? What plasma?
The sun is intangible. Let's leave it at that. Right now, we can't touch it.
Hold on. I heard something. Maybe
Plasma.
I'm going nuts. Did they something about plasma? Did I miss that? Did I imagine that?
That was John, not me.
I know, Neil.
You're going very quick, John.
Yeah, like within the, you're talking about touching the light, right? Within the bulb, the excited state of the filament.
Sorry, let me get it straight. Are you now giving us an example of actual plasma on the ground so you can... Didn't I just cover this? Maybe I'm just thinking these things and not saying them. So are you about to draw a correlation between what you're now going to describe as plasma and its effects on the ground versus what the sun is now plasma because of that? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, that's what the guy yesterday was trying to work into, but he messed up and he called the wrong fallacy from the beginning.
Don't worry about that. I'm just worried about whether or not it's yours or anybody else's. Is there an assertion that it's plasma because here's some plasma correlation, X, Y, Z correlates with A, B, C? Is that what is going on here to say the sun is plasma?
Right. Yeah. That's basically the thought process behind it. I would think, they're looking at it and saying, well, when we create physical light, these things, happen. Or when we create light, these physical effects happen, and so that up there has to be the same thing as what I made in, my garage.
So study the effects of the sun, or the presumed effects of the sun, correlate it with things on the ground, and then assert your just so story after studying the effects of the sun and correlating with them, correlating those effects with things that you can create on the ground. Correct? Correlation isn't causation.
Yeah, but then if you try to assert that it's not that, they'll say it's a special pleading fallacy because you can't demonstrate the undemonstratable.
Well, John, let me ask you this then. Hydrogen plasma is either bright red, deep blue, or purple. Helium plasma is either purple or magenta. Magenta is like a pink or light purple color. Excuse me. Now, if you mix those colors together in any way, shape, or form, can you get yellow and orange?
Have you accounted for Rayleigh scattering?
Rayleigh scattering, no.
Oh, well, there's your problem.
How is it?
Well, according to them, you've got this sun at a massive distance, and when it enters the atmosphere, the oxymoron of air in a sphere shaped, well, some of the light is going to scatter, and some of the light isn't going to scatter. Well, the light that's passed through isn't going to be necessarily the light that you see because of Rayleigh scattering. So you're going to have some of the light rays not actually make it to your eye, and the combination of the ones that remain, because of this effect I'm correlating with my assumption that the sun is a massive distance away from an air sphere, is going to be the reason that you're going to let certain filtered lights through and they're going to mix together and create magenta. I mean, that's true because I made it myself.
Yeah, but see, that's a bit of a problem because NASA show us a big orange and yellow sun from space.
No. Sometimes NASA will put, hues and filters on things because they, from what I understand, sometimes they just want to present it in a manner that people are familiar with, so that it, if they were to show you like a bright purple sun or something, it would freak people out. So they just, they've got a certain amount of artistic license when it comes to these things. For example, if you look at some of the pictures from Hubble of the pillars of creation, they don't really look like that. Much of the light isn't actually in the visible spectrum. So they take the light that's in a different spectrum and say, well, that's orange. And then they give it that with a bit of artistic license. And then you can see it in a bit more, an idea of how it would see if you were Superman and had a more broad spectrum in your visual acuity.
So are you saying that the sun is purple?
I'm saying that because of an assumption that the sun is a vast distance away from an air sphere, and that air sphere is going to scatter certain light rays and let others through, and the combination of the ones that are let through are going to give us the light that we actually perceive, because of my assumption of a 93 million mile sun and an air sphere and Rayleigh scattering. And I can probably correlate that and show an actual demonstration of how I can achieve Rayleigh scattering and get various different light waves to scatter, absorb, or pass through. And then, with a bit of time, I'm sure I could come up with a combination of lights that didn't go through, combined, and form the result that we end up seeing. And now I can say that that is how the sun works. It's just as simple as that, really. Because if I form that correlation and can demonstrate it, and it is applicable with my assumptions of 93 million mile suns and air spheres, then basically that validates the model.
So you can support that the sun is purple, or maybe bright red, or dark deep blue, or magenta.
In the heliocentric model, yes, you can.
I was about to say, I can have that sun be any colour. Right, if I want that sun to be black, it can be. What do you know? They actually call it a black body, don't they? Well, I mean, it's merely semantics, isn't it now? It can be anything I like in the model, Brian. Anything I like. You want it to be purple? You got it, my friend.
Yeah, but see, that's a bit of a problem because plasma, you see, hydrogen and helium plasma only come in certain colours, and they only give off a certain spectrum of light. So
yeah,
I don't see how you're going to get orange and yellow.
It's like you totally ignored my bullshit that I made up on the spot.
I ignored every bit of it.
No, you did. You ignored every bit of it. I said, yeah, they only give off certain frequencies, but when you combine those and add in the effects of Rayleigh scattering, you know, a little bit of just so story, a just so stir of bullshit, and then we're there with the mixture of those light rays combining to form the colour, like it's a palette of colour I'm mixing up with a paintbrush. I can do that in the model, Brian. I've told you. Anything is possible in the model.
Yeah, but we would have seen that from the footage from space.
No, you're not going to see that. That's when you're detailing things that are in perspective reality view. And I'm talking about conceptually, if you were to see these light rays side on coming in through and scattering, diffusing, and then letting some of the light rays through to mix to form what we actually see, then you'd understand. But obviously you can't achieve that view. You've got to understand that you're only going to see the end result. And the end result is the colour that we actually see the sun. That doesn't mean it isn't purple. I mean, can you actually prove that it isn't from your perspective? No, you can't. But I can detail precisely why it is purple if required to do so.
Okay, could you support any of that?
Yeah, just
with
did.
Official documentation?
You just ignored me. It's an outrage. You want me to go through it again? No problem. Side on, you can see a conceptualization of light as a ray, a wave, and those waves interacting in such a fashion upon diffusion through the atmosphere, the air sphere, to have this effect called Rayleigh scattering. Some of the light rays that pass through will combine to form a perceived colour that we actually get. That's all you're going to get. You can only see what you can see. But my description in side view will show that the combination of those, one of them could be purple. In fact, it is, because it's plasma. And if that's the objection that you've got here, that plasma, the claimed substance of the second law of thermodynamics violation, sun gas burning in a vacuum, isn't the right colour that we see, then I can work around that in the model without a problem. Now, if you're saying show me in reality, well, that's a different story. We can only see what we actually see. And the fact that it doesn't match what is, you know, somehow comparable by correlation doesn't mean it's not true in the model. It is true in the model. I made it up myself.
Well, that's funny because this all started with a French guy who done some stellar spectroscopy and claimed that there was a yellow streak on the sun, and that was helium, and helium was yellow from then on, except for helium isn't yellow.
No, it is in his model. I'm pretty sure I know exactly what you're referring to, and that particular reference to yellow, while he says yellow, he didn't realise at the time he wrote that I would be making up this side profile view with light as a wave mixing to... No, he didn't know what he didn't know, Brian. he couldn't have known I was going to make up this just so story. But if he did, he'd have known that when he said yellow, it was exactly the same as me making up that the perceived light isn't the light we get because of Rayleigh scattering and 93 million mile suns when seen in side profile with the light reified into waves mixing together to form this colour that we actually see. He couldn't have known that, Brian. So just because he said yellow, it's because he saw what he actually saw and he's going to base it on that. And because he knows already, because it's part of the rhetoric at that stage, that the sun is helium, then the sun's helium is yellow for him, only because that's what he sees. And he knows it's helium because someone else made that up themselves. And he knew that. He just didn't know that my explanation was going to be imposed over the top of everyone else's hereafter because I made it up myself right now. He didn't know that, Brian, so you can't hold him to task on that.
So you're saying that if I see a flashlight across 4 fields, it will look the colour that it is. But if I see it across 8 fields, then it will look a different colour.
No, that's a false equivalence. So, no, when I said that we were in orthographic view seeing the reified light as waves mixing by way of Rayleigh scattering, number one, your torch isn't 93 million miles away. I've got a special pleading fallacy here, and I've got a sun that you can't experience in the way I describe it from the vantage point I'm giving you. So, you know, don't just move away from my special pleading fallacy in this regard, Brian. You know, that is part of my argument after all.
Well, I'm going to need some backup for some of this because I can't just accept a man's words.
Be a baller is so much fun because you can just make up any old crap you like.
Yeah.
Who did a mic check? We heard you, whoever that was.
It was solar. I just
solar.
wanted to say that with indoor growing gardens, they use a blue light spectrum or a red light spectrum. And the new LED globes come out with a purple light, blending the red and blue spectrum. And it's fascinating to see the growth that is generated with a purple light. So Brian maybe wasn't so off the mark there.
See? That correlates with my completely made up nonsense. See, Brian?
Not at all. Because there's not going to be yellow and orange come out of that bulb.
There is. How many times? Do I need to bring up the diagram? Inside view, you will see exactly what I'm describing, right? So I've got it on screen now. So when you're looking at the side of the Earth from about 500 million miles away, you can then see that these light, you know, you're seeing a yellow sun in reality and light diverging. But when I put it in this view, and then if I added little squiggles to these lines, right, then they'd become little waves that I could mix after they go through the air sphere by way of Rayleigh scattering and have them come through at whatever frequency I determine mathematically is the correct one to give us yellow based on the origin of them being the colour that is the gas that I said it was in the first place. I can definitely do that, Brian.
And I don't think he's accounted, hold on a second, he's not accounted for the inertial movement either, so we're going to get some red shift within this.
I couldn't agree more. Within this heliocentric made-up nonsense that I've come up with, there's definitely going to be some sort of shifting if the mathematics don't quite line up in terms of the frequency I'm going to reify by way of light waves. So, yeah, I mean, that's very useful to know that I've got some mass room in that regard, John. You're a very useful member of the Globe debate team.
Well, we should be seeing redshift and blue shift daily with the sun, should we not?
We do.
We do.
We've not seen that. CMB. We just need Hubble. Have you not seen the pictures from Hubble? We've seen all the way back to the future, my friend.
And sunrise and sunset is always red, and then midday is always blue.
Exactly. Side on, it's always blue. This guy's getting it.
I think I'll have to trust what I see.
Why? You can't trust what you see, Brian. You've got to trust the reified model inside view. What's your problem? Heliocentrism is believed by everybody. Are you thick?
It's that orthographic view that Nathan's talking about that they use for the Big Bang as well. And then you put a couple of dotted lines, and between this zone, that's when the material coalesced and formed the balls. So then with his side view version, at the last bit when it gets to the Earth, that's when it turns yellow.
Now we're getting it.
All good, but what's the distance? Any evidence for the distance?
Distance 93 million miles in side profile when using R that's assumed, debunked by the Black Swan. imposing that R onto Venus by way of an assumption that it's also a physical sphere in a sky vacuum, and then using Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion to derive all the scaling values to give us the distance at 93 million miles for the sun. God, don't you know how to assume Venus is the same size as a presupposed spherical Earth? What is your malfunction?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So if it's 93 million miles away, is Light going to come in parallel, or will it come in the funny angles?
No, it's going to come in parallel. I've got a picture on screen for my audience now. If you look at it,
okay. Well, I got video and pictures coming in funny angles, corpuscular rays. So it can't be 93 million miles then.
No. That's just from your vantage point on the ground. You're never going to achieve.
No, I got one from an airplane.
No, is the airplane seeing the side of Earth in orthographic representation with you at approximately 500 million miles away, or whatever I need for this picture to make sense scale-wise? I don't think so. You're never going to achieve orthographic view where I'm making up this nonsense from. So you saying that you see it in perspective view with divergent light rays doesn't mean anything, because you're not seeing it from the reified 90-degree side-on perspective that I'm giving you that doesn't have perspective. So
no, I agree with you 100%. Your view is not reality. Mine is.
It is
But
reality.
don't they have that view?
I know how to rumpus too. It is reality. It's just a reality that you can't achieve any confirmation of. Now, I say this is reality based on the way it's represented. Just because you can't get 500 million miles away from Earth and see it inside profile when it's assumed to be a sphere, with light coming in parallel, as it does, it shows it here.
Well, I'm glad you.
Hold
you
on.
Are,
Nathan.
Gee, thanks, Neil.
Hey, go ahead.
They know I feel 10th.
Thanks, Neil.
Yeah,
White
thanks,
knighting,
Neil. Now I'm going to latch on to
knighting.
Neil and see if he's got a question rather than letting 10th man get to any sort of rebuttal.
No, I'm gonna let.
What was that,
I'm gonna
Neil?
let Neil
Don't
feel the
interrupt Neil.
course.
Don't
All I
interrupt Neil,
wanted to
10th.
say is I don't like Nathan as a baller.
Could be damn straight. I'd be the best baller you ever knew.
Well, Nathan the baller, you have a problem here. It's called the black swan.
What about it? It's no problem.
Well,
Extreme refraction.
no. Well, then welcome to flat Earth.
What you were talking about, I gave you a rebuttal immediately, without hesitation. Extreme refraction in the black swan.
Well, yes, thank you very much. So then you just joined the flat Earth group by saying that, because if
didn't.
you can't see it and can't measure it, you have a problem.
Can't see what and measure what. We do see at the horizon.
The horizon,
It's there. Just look
the
out your
horizon
window.
that blocks the bottoms of boats and buildings.
Yeah, it does. You can measure it. We've got Earth curve calculators for that.
Well, how can you measure it with refraction? How can you do it with a bendy light? You need a straight tangent to do it.
R-based.
Is perspective in that Earth curve calculator?
Oh, I'm
No,
so glad
but
everyone's jumping
there's too many
in.
questions coming my way. You're just rumpusing me. So, what do you want to answer first? Personally, I think that you should be possibly citing something that I've talked about earlier that really is my citation. You should be putting that up on screen right now. Would give me a bit of time to think. What's the first question?
Yeah, with your refraction, everything is bending, so you can't get a tangent. So, welcome to flat Earth.
No, just
And you need
because
a straight line
that's
for a
not.
tangent.
Hold on, let me respond. No, the line that is bent to the non-geometric horizon, that point where the horizon is with the bent line, is still a tangent point.
Is it a straight line?
No, it's a bent line to it. But the point that it's
Well, then you
meeting is still a
don't. Then
tangent
you don't have a
point.
tangent, and you can't measure it.
It doesn't mean that the point that the bent line's meeting isn't still a tangent point.
We're not talking about how'd you get the point without the straight tangent line.
I don't need the straight line.
Yes, you do. If
No,
you
I
want to do
don't.
geometry.
No, I don't. Don't you understand that a tangent isn't a straight line? You don't need it.
Well, not in geometry. In geometry, it is a straight line.
You don't know anything about geometry. You're an idiot. Also, I beat you in debate several weeks ago.
Just like Rumpus, wow.
Any evidence yet of that?
Sorry,
point?
are we just moving away? You're not listening to
Scaredy
my
cat,
rebuttal.
scaredy
That was
cat,
very
scaredy
concise.
cat.
I beat 10th, and now all he can do is move away from my win here.
Scaredy cats.
Not at all.
Where is that tangent being brought to?
You don't need a tangent. You just need a tangent point, which is where the curved line meets that point H.
Meets what?
It meets
Meets
the
what?
curve.
What
Did
is it
anyone-
touching? Where is the tangent being brought to?
Tangent
Meets
point.
what?
Tangent point.
Meets what?
I don't, Brian, I want to talk to you now because he's easier than Brian, you mean tangent point? Tangent point.
Yeah,
No,
where are you bringing the tangent to? You're bringing the tangent from a point A to point B. Point A is you, where's point B?
Point B is the observer point. And
I
point
can
A
come
is
in here.
the point that it meets at a curved line. That can meet at a tangent point. That curved line can meet a tangent point, Brian.
And where is this curved line on Earth?
Well, that's just the way you see things. Things are refracted with an R value at a standard rate that I'll massage however I need to in this argument.
Well, if it's
Yeah, but
refracted,
where are you bringing? I don't see this curved line. Where are you bringing this tangent? Your point A of the tangent. You're bringing point B to somewhere. Where is the point B? What's point B touching?
Tangent point. It's meeting the tangent point. The end. The
How'd you get
horizon,
there?
is the tangent point. You keep getting it
Yeah,
wrong.
how'd you
Brian.
get there?
Is the point? What is the point in reality? What is the name of that point? What is it called?
It's called the horizon.
Not in geometry.
It's called the horizon.
The optical,
And
not
I
is the
can help you.
horizon?
I can
Is the
help you.
horizon then a physical
I can help.
geometric location?
You let me interject.
No, you're all right. Brian's doing pretty well. He's almost got me on the ropes. I keep telling you, it's not a tangent. It's a tangent point. And where the curved line meets that tangent point, you can have curves meeting tangent points, Brian. You're not aware?
So yeah, is the horizon a physical geometric location? Please answer the question.
Yes, it is. And no, it isn't.
That's hard to beat.
No, you're just an idiot.
Oh,
No,
he
you're just an
beat
idiot.
himself.
And I beat you in debate recently as well. So,
He beat
no,
himself.
I was very
can
clear.
I just add a point, please? As a baller,
No,
can I
Vacuum,
add
you
a
don't
point?
even know how sun rays work. Stay out of this.
Yeah, please.
Actually, no, I don't think so. Yes, go ahead, Vacuum. And now that's me taking advantage of being a host now, isn't it? I could just give him permission to save
That's
me.
why you better stop yelling at Vacuum.
Save me, Vacuum,
It's
save
taking
me.
you off the
I'd like
path.
to interject.
Why
I think
White
Vacuum's got a
knighting,
perfect right to
Vacuum?
interject here and save me.
I think I can help. I think I can help, Nathan.
Because
It is,
all of this, that's from a flat Earth perspective, isn't it?
What is?
This is just one big campfire circle jerk, isn't it?
it's your argument, dude.
Yeah, I'm beyond.
I'm just articulating it.
I've just spent the
It's
last
pathetic,
20
isn't
minutes
it?
articulating the globe argument, and he thinks we're participating in a flat earth circle jerk. My God, you can't even cope with the fact that I've now flipped positions and I'm arguing from a globe perspective, but you think this is a flat earth circle jerk. On the contrary, I'm playing a globe head, you complete clown. Can't you keep up? How thick are you?
I'll tell you
You're
what,
all
you had
la-
me wobbling there for a bit, Nathan. I was nearly
Very
back on the ball.
adorable. Gotta give it to you all.
I convinced him.
But what's
No,
amazing is Vacuum could hear it, and that's their side, and he wants to argue with it.
I was cringing at one point about 5 minutes ago where you were all laughing and joking. Oh, it was bad.
We do it all day long.
I know you do. That's why I only join on Fridays when I can.
No, we do it all day long because this is what we observe from your side is these silly campfire circle jerk arguments. And now you observe it, your own arguments, and you're laughing at it. Welcome to Flat Earth.
You belong in Gem Pandas.
Anyway, should we do a few more housekeeping questions? Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
Absolutely not.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
The bending of space-time
What
cannot
is
produce.
gravity?
Neil was just detailing. Go ahead, Neil.
I was saying the bending of space-time cannot produce anything.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Not today.
No. And you can't bend the concept either.
Last but by no means least, any evidence of the R value, that's Earth radius?
No. Black Swan.
Killed it.
Have you seen
Okay.
Dr. Zach's video from this week He hasn't
No.
posted in about 2 years, and he describes how they took the flat horizontal plane and the diverging light rays, and they curved the flat plane until the radius to generate parallel sun rays. And he does it through a little demonstration showing how the light rays on a flat earth sort of expand outwards at the bottom like a triangle shape, and then as you curve the surface of the base to be a sphere, all the lines then become parallel. And that's how they got to the 3959, because it was actually required to get it to the point where those lines are then parallel but still converging at some point in the distance.
Perfect. Shout out to Dr. Zach. I love his stuff. Like you say, he's had a bit of a hiatus, and nice to see that he's talking about the radius value and
he a
the
real
necessity
doctor?
mathematically for it to be 3959. That I didn't know. I suspected, but it takes someone like Zach to actually do the maths and show how that actually works. Why is it set in stone at 3959? Well, because if you take the sun and its divergent rays and you plot them into the spherical map to get them parallel, you've got to end up with that figure. Kudos, Zach. I'll check that video out.
Yeah,
That's epic.
really
Kudos
good.
to Zach.
Posted the link, Nathan, for you. So it's in the YouTube chat for anyone if they.
Perfect
Thank you, Adam.
segue for Vacuum and me. Nathan, I got slides up after that airplane video. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slides. Master B.
Got 6 slides, starting with the one with globe Earth and flat Earth.
Yeah, Eratosthenes model versus sun rays diverging on the plane. Can you see this vacuum? It was similar to the one that you saw earlier. Can you see it, Vacuum?
No, I don't go on YouTube.
That's going to be a shame. Well, you might have to
Not
just,
too bad.
if you can
Well, I'll
present
do
it
it for
anyway.
the audience, and please don't pipe in since you can't see it. See, to get a shadow,
Well, I
on the
thought you were
ball.
meant to be educating.
well, you can't see it, so why would I try to educate
Carry
you if
on,
you can't
10th
see
man.
it?
Just carry on.
Yeah. Well, the shadow, if the sun rays come in parallel, the shadow is due to an arc surface. The only way. That's Aristotle's mistake. Because we see in reality funny angles, crepuscular rays from the sun, and as it drifts 15 degrees an hour, its angle to a tree, a post, anything will cast a longer shadow because it's going away from it. And that's how shadows work. Next slide. As you can see, their model has sunlight coming in parallel. And then there's Cyan and Alexandria, B and A, and they have to go to the center of the Earth because the only place you can get an angle on a sphere is from the radius, from the center. And the sun rays have to come in parallel for it to work at the surface. But it's not the way life works, or the sun. Next slide. A little bit more detailed. Well, at Cyan, column at Alexandria, sun rays coming in parallel, which they don't in reality. And there's the shadow at the column in Alexandria, 7.2 degrees, measured from the center of the Earth, which nobody's there observing anything ever. But that's the only place on the sphere you could form an angle. You can't do it off an arc surface because it takes 2 straight lines to form a corner, a vertex to get an angle. Next slide. This is a beauty. They got the sun so far away, and there's Earth. And we have one parallel ray hitting Earth. But all the other depictions show a bunch of parallel rays. Well, which one is it? Next slide. Oops, they have this with a bunch of parallel rays. How is that possible if it's so far away? Only one beam should be hitting us to form that angle. Next slide. Uh-oh, except when it comes to an eclipse, the sun's converging rays now. It can't decide if it wants to be parallel or converging. Bye-bye, globe.
Perfect. I was a bit out of order with the slides for some reason, but other than that, great. Yeah, good presentation.
It sounded amazing.
We just mentioned Dr. Zach there, and he's one that agrees with me on it. The Aristophanes stuff, you can have all that. The issue I've always had with that is it's never described how they translate local time from one town to the other. So how did they know it was midday at the other place, at one town, so that they could measure the angle you were just discussing? That's the issue. Did they have mobiles, and when it was midday in Cyan, ring up the other bloke and say, check your angle now?
I think they had
How
mobiles.
to translate local time in ancient times?
Well, in all seriousness, I think the technology at the time was actually cup and string. So did they not just have a really, really, really long cup and string arrangement?
2 yogurt pots.
Yeah, you got it.
How would
Adam,
you
I
do
saw-
it? How
I
would
saw
you
a
if you didn't
video-
have mobile?
I saw
How
a
would you
video,
link up?
Adam, where the guy said he lit a fire and sent a smoke signal.
That's why I always question that.
Wouldn't that be hidden by the curvature of the Earth?
That's what I thought.
Adam, I've got a question for you. You're an intelligent guy, and I'm not taking the piss there. How would you link up with someone else if you didn't have mobiles or any other communication technology? How would you solve that problem as an
I
intelligent
don't know.
person?
That's what I say is the quandary, isn't it? And it's such a big quandary within this claim, and so key to it that you think it would be one of the boasting points of how they ensured the
but it's
accuracy
not
of it by
difficult, is it?
translating that time exactly.
Well,
That's how you know it's baloney.
But it's not for me to solve, is it? How would you solve it?
Well, I think what they did is they used the equinox. And they had 2 people in both locations. You're talking about the Aristophanes, is it? Adam?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they used the equinox. They had both 2 people. You had people in both locations, and they obviously met up afterwards.
No, that would require them to know that they're both on the same line first, which would require the presumption.
Well, I know that, let's just say the likes of Kepler and Brahe got their astronomy knowledge from astronomy knowledge from astrology. So where all that came from originally, I don't know. And so I haven't really, other than using the equinox, I have no idea how they could have communicated all that to each other.
You're talking second arc differences, aren't you, to be accurate here? So it's crucial that you've got that accuracy. So it's crucial that you take your reading in town 2 at exactly midday at town 1, isn't it? That's how it works to the arc second to be able to then derive your mathematics to presuppose your ball, or flat, it doesn't matter, yeah? But you've got to be that accurate. So that's the point I'm saying. How are you that accurate? If you're a minute later, how much difference does that make in your calculations?
There's the problem. There you go. So in the calculations, if the calculations are predetermined, then effectively you've only got to vaguely match this story to the predetermined mathematics anyway, Adam. It's the other way round. You know, you're assuming incorrectly that the story of this is the thing that actually gave them the numbers. Not at all. It's just a story that goes alongside the numbers.
But for them to be able to generate the numbers, that's what I'm saying. The most crucial thing is the translation of local time from one place to the other.
Wrong.
Because that's the thing you've got to translate if you were going to claim that you calculated this from observation.
Damn, you dropped it in. You gave the disclaimer, which ruins my point. Yeah, correct.
Hey, would someone with Google Earth go in and see what the distance is from Cyan to Alexandria?
You don't get lost in the details, Tenth.
Do those places still exist? Both places. I think Alexandria, is that still existing? Or is that gone?
It will still be there physically, but in terms of what it's named, it's arbitrary anyway. But yeah, I'm pretty certain that the point that they're sorting it on the map hasn't suddenly vanished into non-existence, Brian.
No, because that does happen. Some places that did exist just disappear. You know, sometimes that happens.
What, you like wake up one day and Ireland's gone? I don't think so.
Well, maybe not Ireland, but you know, like that has happened. Like where there's been like towns and things that just disappeared. You know, because there was people just stopped living there.
Yeah, but that's not what I mean.
Adam's point is very...
But that's arbitrary, isn't it? The land that the town was on is still there.
That's still there.
Right.
Adam's point is very important because the minute you're in Cyan and you take that reading, the guy in Alexandria at that same second has to measure the shadow. And how was that ever communicated?
But Eratosthenes wasn't accurate, was he? He wasn't 100% accurate.
Exactly. It's not, number one, it's not 100% accurate. And number two, you're creating a story to go with the predetermined maths. So it's just going to roughly fit. Now, if you're saying he's got to be super accurate to actually do this as something that you could use to derive something else, then you're under the misapprehension of the Just So story that that's what they're actually doing, as Adam then disclaimed it. In reality, it's just a story to go alongside some predetermined maths.
I agree.
It's attributed to him. Sent, I think, millennia later. It's a claim that's attributed to him. Historically, as far as I'm aware, the only Eratosthenes you find is the librarian in Alexandria, and other things are attributed to him as well, but not that specific. He doesn't specifically make the claim himself. It's attributed to him posthumously.
Yeah, I think they made it all up. Absolutely.
I think I got the answer to this one.
I agree with that.
Go ahead, John.
Well, if you know that you're on a ball and you measure on the equinox at noon, then the sun will be 90 degrees overhead, and it doesn't matter how far off the line you are because the Earth's turning to match that line.
That's 3 assumptions in that statement.
But that's how it works.
No, that's how you assume 3 things. And tell us.
Nah, the guy never existed.
That funnily enough match up.
Again, vacuum.
I mean, it's all very neat, isn't it?
Exactly. You can do that when you've started with the result
it's a bit
you need.
too neat, isn't it?
Yeah, neatly fits around the numbers that they need.
Like, the way things work is a bit too neat. That's what you're saying.
They don't work.
Yeah,
Like
because
it was backward mathematics, isn't it? All those assumptions they made were just
it's going to be very neat, isn't it? It's just ridiculous, your argument.
Did get the right time and all this, and we can't have him getting it exactly to today's figures because that would just be ridiculous. So we'll kick him 2 or 3% out, a bit like they did with Uncle Bobby. Yeah, it is farcical when you listen to the tale, and that's the main validation for the religion. It is. You're right. It is just laughable, really.
It's far too neat.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't Neil deGrasse Tyson also said that they had to have assumed the globe, right? Because even he said that Eratosthenes' so-called experiment could work on a plane as well. So blah blah.
With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, or joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Also, below this video, there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!